fundamentally, an outlook like this, which is nihilistic, is the fear of being responsible. The less stuff that you have control over, the less of your responsibility, or I can say it this way, the less, or the more power you have, the more responsibility you have, and vice versa. Well, to the point of the crash, I guess it's also interesting to point out that the crash happened right as we were graduating college. Right, I graduated college in 2009. Right now, by my actions, I left the job that I had guaranteed and went off and did my thing, so I didn't really feel it. But there was this real big societal fuck you that hit us, where we were told, okay, do all these things, and when you graduate, you're going to get rewarded with by society with stuff that society provides. And then, as soon as we did all the stuff that we were told to, we fell off a cliff.
Yeah.
So I also wonder if that may have had something to do with it, where we're like, okay, well, society has nothing to provide, so I guess I'll just go find fucking something interesting to do, to this girl's point.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth describing my turnaround, right? So I obviously am not doing that anymore, and I had a come to Jesus moment. You're listening to that, Jesus? I had a come to you moment. We got a listener in there named Jesus making comments at us. And he this is going to sound cliche at this point. I ran into the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Have you heard of it or read it, Nima?
I have it actually, but I have not read it, but I have it somewhere.
Well, and then when he talks about his definition of rich people, middle class, and poor people, which is just real quick. Rich people make money and they buy income-producing assets. Middle class people make money and they buy income-draining liabilities like houses and cars. And poor people make money and they just burn it on immediate consumption. They go to a party or buy alcohol or whatever, right? And I discovered this near the end of my vagabonding time. And when I read that, I realized that when I flipped off the oil refinery and ran away to my vagabonding thing, I understood the middle class and the poor. And I was making a decision between what I thought were my only two options. Like I said, it didn't even occur to me to think of how what a rich person would look like. And then just to have somebody say, hey, here's a description of the three different types of people, I was like, oh, well, now that I know that it exists, I can start to move in that direction, right? And so, I mean, for me, then I immediately ran into the conundrum of, okay, I'm going to come back. I came back to the United States. I literally had $5 in my pocket when I got here. I mean, I think I found some money stashed away in my mom's house or something after I got back. But when I got here on the airport, my bank account was empty, and I had $40 when I left. I'd spent $35 on airplane food, and I had $5 left in my pocket. And I was like, I'm gonna go do real estate. Not being a fucking agent licensed or whatever. I'm like, I'm gonna go do real estate deals. And I was like, but how do I avoid getting a job at the fucking oil refinery again? Because that's all my skill set. I mean, if I'm going to look at my resume, that's the only thing I got going for me on my resume is I could work at an oil refinery again as a lab tech. And I'm like, well, now I got a goal. I'm going to do this big thing. Now, it took me a while because my mindset was just not set that way, but I did end up eventually doing a couple real estate deals. The first one, I did two. Both were quite painful. I didn't lose any money. But I did not make the amount of money that I was hoping I would have, or that I should have based on hindsight, where it's like, oh, if we'd done all these things, we could have made so much more money. Yeah, great. But I did learn some valuable lessons, and then I've jumped from there to the point where I've done my first acquisition on a business. I now have 40 employees, roughly speaking, depending on, it's a lot of turnover in one of the places, but I have roughly 40 employees, and so back, similar to what Nemo was saying, I've got people dependent on me. I've got responsibilities. I mean, I can get a phone call that's like, oh my God, this thing's happening. I mean, if it happened right now, I got to drop everything and go run and take care of it because I've got some fucking responsibility. And I think it's worth coming back to that. And, now we're getting close to the tantalizing subject of nihilism, which is, I think, fundamentally, an outlook like this, which is nihilistic, is the fear of being responsible. The less stuff that you have control over, the less of your responsibility, or I could say it this way, the less, or the more power you have, the more responsibility you have, and vice versa. And so an outlook like this, have no goal, have no purpose, is to say have no power, which follows have no responsibility. I think fundamentally this is a fear of responsibility. No comment, Nima?
Well, yeah, it is. It's fundamentally fear of responsibility. You could also say it's fundamentally denial of truth, but I guess what you're saying is what is the sentiment that triggers that kind of belief? And yeah, it is.
Well, I think the fear of responsibility and the denial of truth aren't that too separated from each other. Because if responsibility is kind of weird in the sense of, okay, right now, let's say there's a comet coming toward Earth. I'm not responsible for fixing it because I have no power to do so. Right? Now, if I had the power to do so, let's say I got a rocket here that I can crank up and shoot the asteroid with. Well, then I've got the responsibility for dealing with that. That's the black and white responsibility. Here's the gray responsibility, which is right now I'm looking at what I'm sitting here going, okay, what could I do right now? If I make a decision that says, okay, do something that does not make myself more powerful, in the future I will not have any responsibility to deal with big things, right? My metaphorical asteroid coming toward the Earth. But if I say, okay, right now, I understand that I have the capacity to do things that make me more powerful. Earning money is an example of that, right? I have the capacity to do things to make myself more powerful. And so I'm going to start choosing to move in that direction. I know at some point, as I get more and more powerful, I am going to find myself in these metaphorical asteroid situations where I'm responsible for making a decision of what to do about this big thing that's coming. So if I can have the mindset to avoid that power, I know I can avoid any future responsibility. However, that choice in and of itself was something that you were responsible for. You had a responsibility to you were responsible for the choice of, do I go less power or do I go more power? And nihilism, or this infection that this girl is describing that I had at one point, is a way to choose going, okay, don't get any more power, because I think fundamentally they have a fear of responsibility, and they know if they don't accumulate the power, they'll never be responsible for dealing with a big decision.
I think that's a particular version of nihilism, but there's also a lot of nihilists who absolutely want to attain power, and they apply nihilist morality to what they're doing, right? Because if everything's a free for all, then my will to power, I think Nietzsche called it that too, is completely justified because there's no justification. So really, I can do whatever I want. And Nietzsche defines nihilism as that there is no truth, that there is no absolute state of affairs, no thing in itself. This alone is nihilism, and of the most extreme kind. That's from Will to Power, Volume 1, in the complete works of Friedrich Nietzsche. Yeah, I'm just reading from Father Seraphim Rose's book, Nihilism, which is from the 1960s. I think it's taken from some big, greater work that he was working on, extracted from that. but that greater work he never published, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's where this is from.
So I think the recommendation should be bubbling up for both B and Nima here is you got to learn to have some sense of purpose, and you've got to learn to have a goal. And if you've accepted this outlook that this girl is proselytizing, it's going to be really painful and really difficult for you to formulate a goal or formulate a purpose, because for whatever reason, just like me, I had been trained not to do that. I'd seriously been trained not to do that.
It's also clearly linked with atheism, because you also have to have faith in life, and whether or not you like it or whether or not you think so, you will always have faith in something.
Right.
The question is, what do you have faith in? What do you ultimately choose to have faith in? Whether it's logic in itself, or whether it's the omnipotent, omniscient creator of the universe, whether it's the scientific method, whether it's the proclamations of Dr. Fauci. You choose to have faith in something at the end of the day.
If everybody who's watching this now or recording could like, share, and subscribe it helps us out a lot.
Yeah.
I hate saying it, but it's just true.